I have so many things. I want to grow everything. I want to grow everything in the garden, but I don't have that much space. I mean, what the homestead? I can't grow it all at once, right? Well, the thing is that it doesn't all grow at the same time anyway. I mean, some stuff grows better in the spring, other stuff grows better in the summer, some stuff grows better in the winter. So what do? I rotate it around with the homestead. I do. You want to know what I'm talking about? Come on, let's go. I'll show you. Come on, let's go. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at, this is the garden aerial view here, and you can see I just have a few garden beds, raised garden beds. Some of them are kind of small actually, and I'm going to start with springtime and what I plant in the spring. Now I'm going to show you an illustration. This represents the beds I have. Now notice, carrots, asparagus, and garlic. I'm actually going to do the talk about the carrots and the garlic at the end of the video because I actually plant them in the fall, but they're in there when spring comes around, so that's why they're already labeled and ready to go. And asparagus I leave in that container all year round because it just keeps coming back every year in the spring. What I do plant in the spring is broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and Romanesco. And so I plant them really early. I will tell you, I start my broccoli seeds probably in January, and I put them in the ground by March as early as I can because they like the cool weather, and I'm in zone 8A, and it gets pretty warm here in the summer, so I like to get the Brussels sprouts, the Romanesco, and the broccoli, especially the broccoli, in the ground as quick as I can. You see I got some Brussels sprouts coming now. They take a little bit longer than the broccoli. The broccoli is the first thing to ripen and be ready to eat. So here's my broccoli. Look, it's already going at the same time. Those Brussels sprouts, these videos are taken at the same time, and you can see these guys are ready to eat, and I'm just going to take these heads here, and I'm going to have myself some broccoli for dinner, and I'm just going to compost the rest of it. But now you can see I pulled that broccoli, so that opens up a spot. And we're going to put something in that spot. But before we do, we've still got a couple of spots open. So the next thing I do is I come in with my tomatoes. I plant my tomatoes right after I get my broccoli and my Romanesco and Brussels sprouts in the ground. The next thing I go after is my tomatoes. I start them early in mid-January so I can get them in the ground as fast as I can. And you might say, why? And I'll tell you why. Because tomatoes, they don't really like the heat. Believe it or not, I used to grow the tomatoes in the summer. And what happened was it gets to be around, 80, 90 degrees here. And the tomatoes grow great. They grow 9 feet tall, but they don't produce any tomatoes. And when it gets too hot, they stop producing tomatoes. So I said, I can't do that anymore. So I start them right away in the spring. And I also start my potatoes. Now these were potato pieces that just started to sprout, and I cut them up and I let them dry out for a couple of days, and I'm just putting them in the dirt. Now the dirt's pretty low in this bed, and that's because I'm going to end up putting a little hay. So as they grow, I put a little straw on top, and then they grow a little more, and I put a little more straw on top because the roots kind of grow up. Potatoes are actually kind of plant that grows up. So here you can see they've grown up, and you can see I've got all these straw and wood chips and stuff in there, and they're looking really good. So we're probably going to have a whole bucket of potatoes in there, and that is designated potato spot. Now here's some onions. I also start my onions inside from seeds. I start them from seeds and plant them, and I also have, if you see some other videos, I cut the onion like this piece here where I've cut it and started it, rooted it, and I'll put it in there. And those are going to come up great too, so I actually have some yellow onions and some red onions that I do. Now we're going to get into summer. And now like I showed you when I pulled the broccoli, I'm going to have some open spots. We'll talk about that in a minute. But while I still have some beds open, I'm going to fill them up. So you can see on the end here, I've still got a couple of beds open. So let's put some plants in there while the broccoli and Brussels sprouts are still cooking. Eggplant. My next one to get in the ground is eggplant and then sweet potatoes. Here's why. Both of them are summer plants, so they grow great in the summer, especially sweet potatoes. But I found that eggplant takes a long time to grow. At least I find it takes a long time to grow to get mature and start producing some fruit. And I happen to really like eggplant. I didn't used to like eggplant at all. I used to get the store-bought eggplant, and I was like, why would I have this? And then when I started growing it, because my wife liked it, I ate it, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. It tastes more like a fried green tomato. I find that the ones I grow anyway. So I'm get them in the ground. So I started these pretty early too, probably about the same time as my tomatoes. Get them in the ground so they can get to maturity as quick as possible, so I can have them flower and produce some fruit all summer long. I want to keep them going. I hope that I can keep them in the ground until autumn, producing eggplant all summer. So I'm going to water them, and then they're going to grow wonderfully, almost like magic. I'll snap my fingers, and look how big they are right there. So there you got some flowers on them, and I'm going to have some eggplants coming up really good. So good. So that's that, except for the sweet potatoes. Now, sweet potatoes, I haven't actually grown. This is my first year growing them. I did it last year as a test, and it worked. But I didn't. I started so late in the year, I didn't actually have it work. So what you do is you start with a sweet potato, and you put it in water, and it grows these little slips. And then you cut off the slips, and you put them in water, and they root. And then you plant the slip into the ground, and they turn into a vine. And underneath, they produce the sweet potato. So I'm hoping I got these in nice and early summer. They are like a tropical plant. They're going to grow and grow and grow and grow, and hopefully in the fall I'll be digging this up and it'll be full of yams. I also get my peppers in the ground fairly early, right away in the summer, because peppers are definitely they have no problem with heat. I can grow them all summer long, but I want to get them in early again so I can get them to produce as much fruit and have as much fruit as I can. I planted them late last year and I didn't get a lot of peppers. So what I did was I put these milk jugs on top, and it works like a little greenhouse. So in case we have some cooler nights, not I'm talking about frost because it's summer, but just cooler nights where they need to be warm. Anyway, we've got a couple of open spots now because we pulled the broccoli, we pulled the Brussels sprouts, we pulled the Romanesco. So now we can put some stuff in, like corn and some okra. I haven't done corn. This is my first year doing corn, but now I pulled that broccoli, I put in these corn seeds, and you can see it's already starting to come up. So this is an experiment. We're going to see how my timing is. I've gone around and driven in my county and noticed other people's corn's a little taller than mine, so they might have started early. So I'm going to put in some more eggplant. I'm going to put in some more peppers. I'm just going to fill up the garden with all my summer vegetables until autumn rolls around. And then most of those plants are going to get harvested, right? The eggplants are going to get harvested. The okra is going to get harvested. The tomatoes are already gone. The peppers are going to get harvested. And that leaves me with carrots, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and asparagus, which is there all year long, right? So those things are all there. Also, there are two of my garden beds that we're not going to mess with, and that is my potatoes, my sweet potatoes and my potatoes, because I feel like they're just going to grow potatoes in there, and so I just don't want to start growing other things. So I'm designating those potato spots. So you see what I have left. Now let's go into the carrots. You can plant carrots whenever you want. Some people say, well, you want to plant them in the cooler temperatures because they taste sweeter. Other people say in the summer they're going to get woody, and I don't care. I'll grow them all year round. I happen to like carrots, and I don't really care what they taste like. So my wife makes a really good like ginger honey carrot thing going on. So you can see I can just look down there and I can see how big the carrot's coming along. So I just keep throwing in seeds. If I pull a carrot, I put another couple seeds in there. So I got them just like little ones coming, big ones coming, and I'll plant them in December, and they'll still grow. So we got the carrots going. Now the other one in there is the garlic. And now I want to talk about garlic, which I do plant in the fall. I started inside the house with just the little garlic pieces like this, and I put them in water, and it doesn't take long for them to root, and they sprout, and then I plant them in the garden in the fall. And the reason is because garlic needs to be overwintered. So the garlic seed needs to go through a temperature drop. It needs to get cold. And I believe the reason is so the bulbs will grow bigger. So if you just were to plant these in the spring after it was cold, they wouldn't. Usually, I just put in a bucket here. They wouldn't grow as big. But the bulbs wouldn't get as big. But if they winter, they'll get bigger. Finally, I'll put in collards and mustard greens. And I'll tell you what, well, I really like collards, but I tried to grow them from seeds, and I found it quite difficult because it takes a long time for them to get from seed to maturity. But what I did is I actually bought a bunch of collards, and we cleaned them out, and I just threw the stems in the dirt like that, and they grew. They grew right from the stems. You just bury those stems, and they grow, and you'll have all kinds of collard greens ready to go. So if you like collard greens, do that, and they can be out there all winter long. So that's really a quick tour of how I rotate the garden, and it seems to work for me. I hope you can get something out of it, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So what the homestead?